Okay. How are we doing there? I'm gonna make that a little larger. Okay, I think we're recording. Looks good. So the goal of the class is to give you a foundation to say kind of where you're at this afternoon. Okay, I have someone who wants to look at houses. What do I do now? My goal isn't to show you how to do. There's so many facets you can get, as we talked about earlier. You use open houses. Certainly letting people know, and that's oftentimes the first lead that you get is you let people know I'm selling real estate now. Oh, could you help? My mom needs something, or I need something, and so friends and family are oftentimes your first client, past coworker. Wouldn't say no. So those come up sometimes quickly and without notice. So this gives you a foundation and kind of where to go from there, so that you're not like shaking in your boots, although you did the right thing to set up an appointment, how to talk to your lender. So we're going to start down here because she already handled the other stuff now. And I did just kind of a rough outline, which is probably more legible on your outline than up here, but so begin by introducing your client to a lender. So we do have a list of preferred lenders in BrokerSumo. Presume you've all logged into that at this point. Have you gotten a login to BrokerSumo and you've been in that? We'll get in and out of that a couple of times today, but there's several good lenders in there. Paul sits down here with VIP and someone else on alternate days. Forget the other one. Hi, how you doing? Sign up sheet somewhere wandering around too. My name's Craig Harlan. I didn't do the introduction, so I guess we'll officially do that. I knew you were coming. I just didn't know when. So no. Appreciate it. So I've been with the brokerage now, I don't know, 8 or 9 years. Was previously doing the agent helpline, and I've kind of just stepped back from that. But I'm going to be doing a couple classes and a contract assist, which we'll talk about in a little bit, which is kind of a hand holding through the program, which is a paid assistance program. You might have heard about that a little bit in orientation. We have mentorship, mentorship's going to include more of the how do I get deals and how do I structure that, and it's a bigger split for that. Contract assist is literally a flat $1,000, and I have a deal. What do I do? How do I put it together? How do I make sure that my client's protected? What's all the paperwork? And so we'll spend during the course of that 4, 5, 6 hours on Zoom calls, and get your paperwork done to the client, get your offer presented properly, go through the inspection process. I guess we're talking about that now. So it's a kind of a small price to pay. I mean, you're going to pay transaction management to do a lot of the paperwork. If you use one, probably $500 or somewhere in that neighborhood. So this is $1,000, but you're learning how to do it. So it's really good to learn the first time. And then if you choose to delegate to Tay Lopez, transaction management preferred provider, then that's awesome. But then at least you know what you're delegating and understand the pieces of it and how to protect your client with that. So I'm going to shrink this one because otherwise it's going to distract me. Oh, thank you. Am I being too loud for you?
Nope, I'm hoping that we weren't too loud for you.
Oh. ChatGPT. How can we figure that? So I have to figure out how to integrate that because it's the thing everyone wants to talk about, right? Is ChatGPT. I actually tried to see if it would format my thing a little prettier, but it doesn't actually create the PDFs, with bullet points and shading and stuff. It just cleaned up my bullet points and said, go use Word to create your layout. No, I'm not that patient. So you get the just basically typewritten.
So for the buyer agency form, with your broker agreement, the buyer advisory.
Yep. So you're going to go into transaction desk.
So like where I'm going to meet this guy right now, we're going to sit at the coffee shop. Would this be a good time for me to present and have him sign these?
Yep. So you really, the agency form, it talks about, let's pull it up here. So the buyer agency form is the first form that's kind of required. The buyer broker agreement is not required. but probably will be given the current lawsuits going on in the country. And it's a really good practice for you to get into. I just got an email from an agent in Washington where literally on January 1st, I guess it became required. And I frankly wish it would be here because then it would put everyone on the same playing field. So let's look at the buyer advisory first. We're going to create, so I'm in transaction desk, which is where you're going to create your forms. I'm not going to go into in-depth, but you'll kind of watch me as I go through this. Hit the house on the left-hand side. I could create a new transaction by hitting the add button. I'm going to use Bill Smith on 123 Main Street because guess what? That's just a trial.
Main dashboard, you can get transaction.
Okay, transaction desk, you can get to through Flex MLS. And you have to have done your sign in, a single sign in, you have to have gotten that from Arizona Association of Realtors. So does that make sense to everyone, or I want to show you that? So when you come in here to Flex MLS, if you hit the menu button, I have it in my shortcuts across the top here, but only because I put a yellow star by it. So if you come down here, under products, you've got transaction desk. And I put a yellow star by it, which means it shows up here, because guess what? One of the ones I go to pretty often, so I don't want to have to dig down into the menu for that. Once you click on that, it's going to want your single sign-on credentials, which is your National Association of Realtors number, and your password. So if you don't know what your NAR number is and you're trying to get that signed up for that, if you come into Flex MLS, because that's the first thing we all worry about, you know, we sign up, we get that membership because we want to go look at houses. So we all know how to get in here. Click your initials in the upper right, go to my profile, and that is your NRDS agent ID is your National Association of Realtors number. And it's that 1453. And then, has anyone not gone to Arizona Association and done the sign up? So I want to show you that real quick. AAR. Did I type wrong? I'm sorry.
Because I was like under their email, like when they shut me off, and so like all my logins and like all my bookmarks around that. So now I have to remember them. It's fine.
So if you come in here without a sign in, if you look under business tools, you'll see AAR single sign on. If you click on that, it'll walk you through. It's not going to be the same for me because I've already been in, but it'll walk you through how to sign in the first time. And basically it's going to be using that NAR number and your last name of the first letter capitalized. Is use your initial password, which you have to change immediately to some long password that has, you got to read the instructions because you need the small letter, capital letter, number, and a sign and a certain number of digits. So just be sure you follow the rules. So once we get into transaction desk, we're going to go look at in Bill Smith. I'm not going to look at buyer broker first. We're going to look at the agency. And I shouldn't use this example because he's got too much. I've played with it too much. I put too much in here. Okay, real estate agency. So this is the legal form of saying, here's what I'm going to do for you as your agent. And there's basically 3 different ways you can go. The buyer's broker, I represent only the buyer, period. Seller's broker, I represent only the seller. And all my fiduciary responsibilities to the seller. All my responsibility up here is to the buyer. Quite often with a brokerage of our size, with as many listings that we have, if you're representing a buyer, or if you have a listing, you certainly want it open to our agent to show it. So you're going to find yourself representing both buyer and seller because it all flows to our broker. So it doesn't mean you personally are going to show the listing. It means it flows to our broker. So you'll find yourself in item 3 a lot. You want to explain that really kind of handcuffs you a little bit. You can't be true fiduciary to both of them. Fiduciary means you've got total right of privacy and secrecy, if you will. So if your seller tells you, say you're on listing, the seller's like, I want to list it for 340, but you know, we'll take 390, we'll take 299, whatever. And if a buyer comes up to you and says, well, what will they take? You can't tell them that unless the seller said, you can tell someone that. And then my argument to them is, well, let's just put it on the MLS and get this over with. Because people will show up in droves to pay that price. So you can't, you really can't advise. You can provide data to either side, whichever one you're talking about. Here's the comps, here's the size of the house, here's this. And they go, if they say, what do you recommend? Unfortunately, because I represent the seller, I can't recommend that price to you, the buyer. I can present the data to you, and you have to tell me where you want to write it up. So it's a limited service. You can't be kind of all things. Because of that, you're not allowed to have your own property listed and represent the buyer for obvious reasons, because you have to be schizophrenic to be able to not have the left hand of your brain talk to the right hand. I think it's challenging to do that with a single agent, but it's legal here if you have someone else a different listing. So you could have an open house for Jane Doe that you have a listing with Jane and hold the open house and the buyer walks in. You can do it. You can represent through one or two licensees. It's better if I'm representing the buyer and you have the seller. It's a little better. But technically, if there's an argument, then you want to have, if there's any kind of confusing, something going on, it's like, the buck's going to stop with Andrew, our broker, who was being there for the first time. So, if you're in a dual, class called a dual representation, the form is a limited representation form, so that's the same thing. But you want to get the broker involved early, because he's basically going to, play the referee and say, I can't make a decision on that. You two buyer and seller, not you two agents you have to let the buyer and seller work it out. So our policy is that if you're representing the buyer, you should get both this. We was using this for another example. You should have line 37 show the buyer property is listed by the broker's firm and that you represent the buyer. You should always have two boxes checked, because you may start out at your introductory meeting and you may say, I'm going to go to 3 houses I want to go look at, and none of them my home group. But what about tomorrow? And they go, hey, here's this thing that, or you find that good one on our, coming soon, and someone puts it on our Facebook page. You always want to start with 35 and 37. Conversely, if you're representing the seller, you want to represent the seller, then show the seller's side, 43 and 43. About the only time, so if you went into a for sale by owner and you represent the buyer, you probably want the seller to acknowledge line 41 that you represent the buyer. Because you're representing the buyer coming, bring up that for sale by owner. Yeah, I knew this was going to be a problem today. That's why I have a full rest of next week.
So you would have the seller's side list?
If you're taking a buyer to a for sale by owner, the seller has basically said, I don't want to be represented. I want to sell this myself. Okay. You want proof of that. So that seller, separate from the form the buyer signs, the buyer's going to sign their own. So that seller, you want them to check on 41 saying you use it, the seller or landlord, so that the duties of the broker shall be to represent the buyer as buyer's broker. So that's what you're going to want to do in a for sale by owner. And I'm also going to be real clear, putting it on the contract. Hey, I don't, none in the broker box for representation, and probably even in additional terms. Hey, this seller is out on their own. They're on, I've got no representation, because you don't want it to be any assumed representation of the seller and get yourself in trouble. So that's the most important form to get done at your coffee meeting. The next form to get done at your coffee meeting is optional. And we're going to go back and find that. And that is the buyer broker employment agreement. Yeah, the for sale by owner, if they're going to pay you a commission, you're also going to use this unrepresented seller compensation form. if you go to a for sale by owner and say, hey, if I bring a buyer, will you pay me? Then you use that form. So you can receive compensation from them and still tell them, I'm not representing you. You're just paying me to bring you a buyer. So buyer broker. Okay, there's a seller, unrepresented seller compensation form. So if someone says, this for sale by owner down the block, can you come taking him to show it? You call the for sale by owner and you say, I got a buyer, come see your house, can you come see it? And you pay me a fee to bring Bob by. Yes, I will. Before you take Bob by, you probably want to send that form over and we get sloppy, and then if you get sloppy, you get burned. You take Bob first, and you don't have that signed, and all of a sudden Bob loves the house and they can tell and they don't want to sign the form, but so the best practice is to get signed ahead. But the more important one, and that comes up rarely, more important form to understand, and I think we'll find ourselves moving towards this as a mandated form. I would guess before the end of this year, with all the big lawsuits out there. And I just got Washington State just made it mandatory on January 1st, because I was looking at houses, so I'm on a realtor's list up there up in Big Harbor. I wanted to have a little summer home on the Puget Sound. Until I realized it was going to cost me more than my primary residence, so told her to go there for 2 months. So, but anyway, she did a really good letter, which I'm going to copy and kind of share with our brokers that if we get to the point of having to roll it out, it wouldn't get totally applicable here, because she's like, this is the new law, which makes everyone on the same playing field. But this talks about, this is money. The other is just simply legal representation. This is money. How are you going to get paid? The protection of this is twofold. Number one, you're going to really always want to do the real estate agency disclosure in addition to this. What type of property? Retainer fee is generally not charged, so if you can get a retainer fee, more power to you. So the buyer agrees to work exclusively with the broker and be accompanied by the broker on first or second property. It talks about model homes by a builder. Buyer acknowledges that the builder or seller may refuse to pay, which will eliminate any credit against compensation. So with this form, you could still, I don't know if we're really going to do it, but you could still go sue for your permission to be paid by the buyer directly. The reality is, nobody wants to hear about a realtor suing their customer. Johnny Walker in the house.
What's YouTube?
Formed right now. My first buyer.
Well, they couldn't find anybody.
They couldn't find anybody else. I tried to call Johnny, but so what this does is talk about the compensation. You can set a minimum compensation for yourself. You can call it 3%, you can call it 10%, whatever, the reality is that things are centering on 2.5 now. There's a few 3s, and every once in a while someone puts it in for $100. They now can put it in for 0 in the MLS for a buyer taking fee. So you have to determine what your kind of minimum you'd like to get paid, and maybe that's.
What do you do if there's a house that is listed on MLS that says 0 for the buyer agent?
You have this, you've gotten this signed already because you took my class and you said, I'm going to be covered. And then what you do is you know that this, you're going to present this to title, so it's a buyer's agent closing
So then
costs.
the buyer would be paying my closing on the side.
Yep.
That's what this is.
Yep.
Just made my head feel so much better.
So, so, back when it was just starting to go, some of them under 3, you might say, I want to put this at 3, and if it's 2.5, I'm going to ask for an extra half. But you kind of have to feel the market. The market's kind of 2.5 now. So you kind of want to protect yourself from the really bottom feeders on the seller's side, the zeros or the $150. So you have to use your own discretion there. But that is what the buyer owes you contractually if you represent them.
Then would that be like just only if the seller, like, is there like mumbo jumbo, like, it just says like, if the seller's not paying, then you pay?
The amount of compensation paid or the compensation broker receives from seller, whichever is greater. So if the seller's paying a 3%, you put 2.5 on there, you get to keep the whole 3 on the seller's side. This just gives you a way to bill for the shortfall the seller's not paid. Or if it's a new home builder and the seller, went before and you told them no go and they went. But again, are you really gonna sue someone for it? Probably not. More importantly, if that case happens, to show your value for the future, just don't keep answering their questions. I'm talking the model home. The person wanted a model home and now you can't represent them. I can't represent you because you chose to not take me in. Read their language on the door when you walked in. You made that choice, so now I'm out of the deal. Well, I have a problem. I have a question. Something's going on. I don't represent you. So, fall back from that and don't get yourself in a problem without getting compensated. I knew I made a mistake when I didn't bring any cough drops from home. Excuse me. So if you ask for a recording, it won't be this class. Yeah, I don't know if that would help. I need more of it. I'll try it. I'll try gum. It might keep me
Just to give you a little.
going on something. No, it's a beautiful time. I'll be wired to caffeine here. This is the tail end of a cold, and I always get this hacky cough afterwards. I'm sure that one of our brokers, Todd or John, are going to be doing more classes about this form. There's some finesse to talking to people about how to sign it. I've had people go, I'm not going to sign that, and then they don't want to take my call after that. So you definitely want to sell it as you're asking you're hiring me. This is our employment agreement. I'd love to work for you. This is the terms which I can work for you. So would you like to hire me? So make it about them and how it protects them. But it is optional right now. In Washington, it just became mandatory. And the form may look a little different, but it's essentially the same kind of thing. And the agent sent it out with a tagline as, I can't think of the song right now. But, basically saying, put a ring on it, since this puts a ring on your relationship. You gotta, what's the song? I can't think of the song. Yeah. Yeah, so it starts out, all the single ladies, in her email tagline. So she kind of made a little humorous, but then came down to, this is putting a ring on it. So read this form and understand it just as you would the contract. Particularly if you're going to ask for it to be signed, I would recommend probably someone today, just get the agency form signed on your meeting today that you're going out. And then the buyer advisory. So while I have, pretty sure I still have open. Thought I did. Nope. So the buyer advisory, I like to send in a follow-up email. I mean, it's required to be signed at the time that we're doing a contract, but it's kind of too late for anyone to do the investigation. I just typed it in and now I can't. The sugar in the gum is going to my head right now. The buyer broker agreement is on this optional. The first one we looked at was the agency form, which you should get that signed up front before you're showing people houses, so they understand what your legal obligation is. And then the buyer advisory. if you go to the Arizona Association of Realtors page, I would recommend that you. Come on, it was just here. I didn't like it. Ah. Certainly don't want to get in a login loop problem today. So if you come under risk management up near the top and hit the buyer advisory. So the buyer advisory is in the transaction desk forms, and you're going to need to have it signed at the time that you're writing a contract. However, the most value to someone is when you take the PDF from here and forward it, because then all of the blue links, like go check out here for, you know, and you have this long link of checking out if the place glows in the dark at night, or so as you come through this, so you can take this one and just download it, save it to your computer. And it's got the sample purchase contract, the CC&R questions. All of the blue links start to become live. So I like to send that as a follow-up document to my initial meeting. Hey, it's great meeting you. Here's some things you may want to consider as you're going through your home search. Feel free to comment any questions as you flip through and look at the links. Have all the lead-based paint form, inspection report. But this gives you a good roadmap of things to consider as you're looking at buying a house. Because then all the links are live. And you don't need this one signed up front, like before you represent it. So I like to send it in a follow-up email, not from transaction desk, which is going to be a black and white PDF. It actually is color, but they're not linkable in that. Using the AAR online. I wouldn't even ask him to sign it at that point. No, you might be sending if it's easier for you to get the buyer agency done with an e-signature, you might discuss it at the top of the meeting and say, I'm going to send it to you and have you sign it. But this, the buyer advisory, you want to send a PDF linkable one rather than the one that you sign. You could send a signed one also, but I'm less concerned that that has a signature date. It needs to be signature date at least of the contract, but the agency should do when you start showing houses.
And then this one, you just have to have like, all of your stuff shown.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's,
But it's good just to get it knocked out.
it's good. It's good to let your client understand it. But if you're going to send a signature copy, it's not going to be the same one because they don't have the live PDF links. Okay. Armless super key lockbox. So if you go to not the flex page, but go to really? Here we go. So go to just the armless, not armless.flex. You'll find over here under support, you can find out how to get your super key put on your phone for opening lock boxes if you haven't done that. You'll get an app on your phone. It's I don't know, $15, $17 a month or something. Just like everything, you get $20 a month to death in this business. So this is another $20. But you want that because you can't go open a lockbox without that. This is also where you can find out if you want to go, you can do this online and get it on your phone. But if you want a physical lockbox, because you're taking a listing, you're probably going to want to go to one of the service centers, which are closest one to us right now is right in the Air Park Scottsdale Area Association. Most of they've consolidated and they're typically in the association office, Phoenix Association, Weimar out in the Southeast Valley in Scottsdale. If you want a physical blue lockbox.
Like if I'm listing a house at the end of this month, like I'm gonna need to purchase for one.
Right. And unfortunately, next month is my first listing class, so you can email me and I'll send you last month's. Because I'm not sending this one out as much as I'm copying to anybody probably. But get a sign order. If you think you're listing it in a month, get a sign order.
Is excited to shop that space. Like face on the side, I know.
Do you really want your face on your sign?
Do I not?
And I don't know, in this world of creepers. I don't know.
Like, this is who you wanna work with.
Well, I have my ugly mug on the sign, so they'll recognize me. But I've heard a lot of people on the, and, you know, I mean, because we all know that, did you get the right pose then? What is that realtor, that realtor pose they've been doing for years? I'm like, really? Can we just kind of do, you know? But a lot of people don't. Just consider your safety if you are all concerned about that before you put your picture on the sign. So, the question is, where are you going to link it? I actually had places to link it, and I put it on early on, like, I mean, when QR codes were in their infancy. I'm like, oh, that's a really great idea. Instead of putting flyers on it, put a QR code. And of course, no one ever clicked them. Since COVID, everyone loves QR codes. I mean, COVID single-handedly revived the QR code industry. Right? I mean, because every restaurant you go to, you can't even get a real menu to look at now, right? No, my phone's dead. Sorry, you can't eat tonight. It's like,
Using it as with nature, because nature uses. So therefore, a nature is great.
who's that?
Link tree.
Yeah, Linktree would be great.
Link tree is a great one because you can always, things get older, you can
It's
always.
the same code.
It's
You
the
can
same
go
code.
link it to a
Yeah.
single property website and you get their price and,
Exactly.
you know. I was,
Change it all.
the one I was using was, I generated a QR code and link to my webpage that I could change the address it was going to, but Linktree will do the same thing.
Same thing.
So you're getting QR code generator, and you just need one that you can store where it's linking to,
Yeah,
and that way you can go change it, you know.
exactly. Things change.
Sorry, you can change it to oh, I'm sorry, this one sold, here's 3 others you might like in the neighborhood. You can make it that message while your sign sits out there for another 20 days waiting for it to close. So it's way better than having to change flyers. It's
You
way
can still
better.
put the QR on the flyer and have it like in addition to, right? Like that QR code, like if you would take that QR and put it on the flyer, so you have it on the board where they can scan it, but then you can also put it on the
Yeah.
actual
Yeah.
flyer, so it's like 2
Yeah,
spots.
totally.
Link into the other.
So
home
you
like
can
what
use
said.
Breakthrough Broker. We have a in Broker Sumo under my marketing, we have a Breakthrough Broker thing. We'll make flyers for your property and stuff. And they have a QR code generator, so you can generate it to their single property website. Linktree gives you much more flexibility down the road, but you just want it. If you're going to put it on your sign, you want it created by something where you can change it up, because your sign is going to last through multiple properties. But yeah, QR codes I think are alive again. And I think QR codes make more sense than flyers.
As a restaurateur, I can tell you not having to have those menus where you print it a bazillion times, like it was a game changer.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I totally would recommend putting a QR code on. I mean, people, it's hot out. I don't want to get out and get the flyer, but they'll take a picture of the QR code as they're driving by, right? It's like, that's what you're going to get more days of the year here than it's cold out. Exactly.
Logins, so the logins gets with their information to get.
So KV Core if you sign up for KV Core as a website provider, which you can use, they actually have links that you can put in there. So KV Core. So it's $50-$60 a month, and it provides links for, it has all the MLS in it, property links and all that kind of stuff. And they have a system in there to build QR code and text codes. Before QR codes, it was text 123 home to this number, or text home to this number, and you would get the same kind of response. And if you do it through KV Core or a similar kind of Commissions Inc., there's other kind of websites. If you do it through that, you can request that it pops up for their information, just like Linktree. You can have it set to request their information to get past the first page. You usually show them the first page, and then if they want to see the inside pictures. So because it's right in your IDX, you can kind of put that, you can give them a little something before you stop them. With Linktree, you're going to stop them. Hey, hey, thanks for coming to my page. If you want more, you got to give me something. Here, you're like, here's the picture that you were looking for. You want to see inside, you're going to give me more. So if you can get the QR code linked to your web provider long-term, I think that's a nice feature. So we're constantly looking at new ways to provide that kind of stuff. So, but okay, so now I get to use my new technology here of showing appointments. Oh, I forgot to retype in here. We're no longer using showing time, using align showings. So you're gonna need to go to Armless and go to their training class on that, because I haven't even used it yet, align showings. So it just became the only option now. They took away showing time because everyone got ticked off because Zillow bought showing time. And we don't want Zillow having all of our data, so we created our own. I'm hearing some mixed reviews on how it's working, but I think you'll find if you go under learning, you should be able to find something about aligned showings right there. So that's something that, as you have a listing coming up, you're going to figure out how to set that up and how to make that work. Home research, RPR mobile. So has anyone heard of RPR? Has everyone heard of RPR? Realty Property Resource?
Saved on my phone.
Good. So you've logged in and everything? So Realty Property Resource is probably one of the most underutilized awesome feature that you have in that's paid for by your dues. So it has a online version also, which is a little more robust, but the mobile one, when you're out looking at houses and somebody goes, well, why didn't we see that one just down the street? This gives you a way to look at it with a very good geolocator. It's so good that there's not much for sale because within a half a mile of here, it's all businesses. So it picks up like a couple things on the other side of the freeway. So we're going to go see where that is. 2 for sale. Probably going to be a condo. So it doesn't, if you're the blue dot in the middle, so if you pull it up, you'll be able to see what's the one closest to you. That'd be the one down the street. If someone says, why didn't you show me that one? And then you can pull it up and look at it and you're like, well, that's actually pending. And you're not going to get that in Zillow. It's actually a 4-bedroom, 3,000 square foot house for 100,000 more than your budget. That's why I didn't show it to you. It looks cute, doesn't it? But you told me you only wanted to spend, 600, and that was 700 because it's a bigger house. So you can answer those questions on the road. People also will say, so let's say I'm looking at this condo. So I'm looking at this condo and I'm showing one in here and somebody goes, what is, do you think it's worth it? Where should I be? So you can get, by plugging the address in, you can get it. I don't know. I thought there was a way I could pop through here. List date.
I was able to use this for my listing at the end of the month, even though I guys like tons of mortgage stuff and stuff, whatever. He's like, yeah, I want to sell this for like 800. But on RPR, let's look at the things around you.
It's much more statistically accurate than Zillow, and it's you can get a really quick.
Definitely helped me.
So yeah, so let's plug in an address here. So it's got the RVM listed right here. That's the realty valuation model. So that's their method of valuing. And if you look at that house, RVM details, you can actually see what what comps they're looking at, see if you think it's makes sense. On the computer, it's really easy. So if someone wants me to do comps, I do it on the computer because you can then pick which comps you want. It's a lot easier on here. Here, it's easy for doing the quick snapshot. And if you go out showing houses and someone says, well, I really like that one at 123 East Bell, and well, let me work up a report when I get home and I'll send it to you. And you can be like, I spent 3 hours and here's 40 pages. And it took you 8 seconds, right? Because it does schools, it does demographics, it does economics, you know, what was the average income in the area, et cetera. So it produces like 30 to 80 page reports, too much in a lot of cases, unless you're dealing with an engineer, but you can go through and delete pages. So it's a good program to get to know. They have some really good online learning classes. So if you're not familiar with RPR, get familiar with it. It's a great mobile app and it's a great online tool. Realty Property Resources. So it's part of your dues. So if you come into Flex, you'll see I have it in my shortcuts up here, which means that originally it was in the menu. So you'll go in the menu. You're going to have to do a one-time login the first time with your National Association number. And you're going to need to do that before you log in with your email vis-a-vis here. But so let's look at the same address here. 17817. So you get an aerial view, how, it's 5-bedroom, 3,000 square foot house. I think it's worth $1.9 million. You can view the details of that. You can do a refined value, which the nice thing about refined value is we're not all appraisers, but you can look at a house and go, okay, local market conditions. Yeah, we're kind of back to average with this, where we are with the buyers being stuck on the interest rate. But when the market was just steaming, you could slide this up and it's going to give them more money because of that. Home exteriors, average. We're going to say the lot size, the view is really good on that house. We seem to know. The interior, they just put a new kitchen in, whatever. I'm surprised it changed zero money. It usually will change money, so I don't know why it's not doing that on that property. But that's really odd. Of course, that's what happens when you do something live, is it behaves poorly. But if someone's asking you to do comps on their house, you can say, yeah, it has a pool, but it needs interior work. It's, interiors and inferior with that sliding scale. So you don't have to go, how much is a new kitchen worth? I don't know, but their statistical program knows. So if it has a newer kitchen, you're going to slide it over. You can actually put if it's a kitchen that we're talking about, electrification of HVAC. Yeah, that's that's for old furnaces, I guess. We'll do an upscale bath and see. I don't know why it's not. I guess it just doesn't want to give that house any more than $1.9 million. I'd take $1.9 million, but normally you can put the bath in and say you spent 15,000 and it's going to give you 10. So it does the math of what appraiser kind of does mentality, because they have this whole price database from home remodeling companies. So that you can do on here. Here you're just going to get that quick value and send them a report. Look out when they get home. Great tool. It's got some really cool income property stuff too, but that's down the road when you start trying to dive into that. Okay. I'm sorry, which?
Demographics.
Yeah.
Like those are the reports.
Yeah, I typically, if I'm sending a report out to someone, if I'm doing an open house, I'm gonna have the abbreviated one and what my trick is, I print one copy, because you're gonna print a 20 or 30 page report. Here's everything you want to know about this neighborhood and this house. Oh, wow, can I have this? No, but I can email it to you. Because you created it, you're gonna have your laptop, you can just forward them a copy. And now what do you have? Their email address. Because,
Talk about like first, instead of actually having like paper flyers out, just assign them to get their info, so you can text them and that way you get their info.
right. That's always the best option. Some people don't want to give you anything, and then that's fine. They weren't gonna answer you anyway. I use KV Core. Because it's a CRM and an IDX program to combine. So I think we might be looking at finding and, looking for an upgrade to that, update to that, but I don't know where we're at with that. So I think it's $50 or $60 a month. So the other thing that you can hand to your clients, we talked about when you're driving around, they go, what about that one down the street that we didn't see? But you'd rather have your client maybe looking at your information. You can put this web address on your, let's see. What do we call that? Well, can't find it right now yet. Too many apps. So we have an app also, so you can get it combined with the KV Core and the app. So the app's more for your consumer, and you can, that might be the route that you want to put on your QR code link to. And you get them in the habit of when they're driving around the neighborhood and wonder how much a house costs. Click on that instead of opening up Zillow. You can, Zillow has such a lead on us on that, but you'll find it when you go into Broker Sumo under industry tools. No, it's it's not industry tools. Tech tools. My app. There it is. I thought it was a red logo. It's black and white now. So they've changed it. So this provides for the consumer facing as they're driving around going, I want to see, is that neighborhood's even makes sense to me. So it's going to do a geolocation of where they're at. Click on it, there's a property. So if you sign up for that, that's a good thing. You can put the tag on your email address. Hey, if you're out looking around at a property and wondering about it, click on, be sure and download my app. So there would not be a cost to the consumer, but you pay a monthly fee for that. Okay. So my client loves the house. Where do I start next? So the thing I talk about here in the notes is consider the contract assist option. So for your first transaction or two, because then you walk through it. I do that. Camille helps with that. So whoever's available, you deal with one person the whole way through, spending time on Zoom, looking at comps, writing your contract, looking at the inspection report when it comes in, looking at any addendums that need to be made, letting you know what you should be doing in terms of following up with the title company, and making sure that you're on track representing your client well. And that's $1,000. So, if you've got a $9,000 or $10,000 commission, $1,000 is, roughly 10% or something. It's a reasonable level. We wanted to make it affordable so people would say, oh, it's something I want to do. And frankly, a lot of people that I've had do it again the second time just because they want to make sure they got it right. And because they see good value in that. Patting myself on the back, but not really. Communication. One of the things before I'm going to dig into actually putting an offer together is I'm going to call the other agent and I'm going to say, number one, it's not so much right now that you have multiple offers, but you certainly want to know that before you're writing an offer. Hey, do you have any offers you're considering? Is there a deadline I need to meet? My client's thinking about writing something up. What the most kind of open-ended question that I ask is, what's important to your client besides the money? And we all see what the price is. What's the most important factor besides money to your client? Well, you know, he really needs to be closed by the end of the month and moved by the middle of July. Okay, so he really needs a post occupancy. So you know that. You can let your buyer know that. You can let your buyer know the risks of letting the seller stay in for 2 weeks. It's not risk free. What if they trash it? Be sure and get a deposit. You know, some other things. Talk to the broker hotline if you're going to go down that road. But at least by talking to the listing agent first before you write the offer, you have an idea what's important, you know, because there's oftentimes some intangibles. Well, you know, he put it on the market, but he really doesn't want to move. He doesn't want to, you know, be out for 2 months. Well, we're okay with a 60-day close. So now you know that, because otherwise you might have written a 30-day close with the presumption that people want to get it over with. But if you get locked up and your client is in a apartment lease for another 2 months, what do they care? You know, so find that out, what's important. And then there's a checklist in Broker Sumo. So you're going to come into Broker Sumo under Office Documents. Try to use that. Under Arizona. And checklist for, there's a new build, purchase transaction, resale listing checklist, and resale purchase. There should be purchase transaction, doesn't say resale. So here's my purchase transaction checklist. I'm going to use the view. You would probably want to just download it so you have it. Basically talks about all the forms that you're likely to need when you get to transaction desk, and then some that you will only be applicable in some properties. Although I'd argue HOA addendum is applicable to most properties in Arizona. Anything built since about early 90s is forced into HOA. Lead-based paint. If it doesn't have an HOA, it might need a lead-based paint. On-site wastewater is septic. Well water speaks for itself unless you're in Rio Verde and you can't get a well. W-9 for the selling broker. I don't know why we put that on there, because we really don't look for that on a listing. We look for that on a lease because you're having to pay out directly. Listing, the title company's paying the commission out, so we don't really have to track the W-9. But this gives you an idea of what you're going to look for when you get to transaction desk in terms of documents. Yeah.
On transaction desk, like if I need to go find this buyer agency for and buyer for,
Okay.
Where do I go?
So I always recommend you start with a transaction, which is a house over here. I'm sorry? Well, make one. If you're just wanting to read the forms for yourself, make one up. So you're going to click this little house button, and then you're going to hit add. And if you just want to go get familiar with the forms, you're going to call this my test, or my test case or something, right? And it really doesn't matter what you're going to call it in terms of residential purchase or whatever. Advanced class to this, you're going to want to learn how to do templates, because you want to set up some templates quicker for you to get your whole list of forms when you open one up. So I'm going to open this up. So this was blank instead of the other one that had too many things in here. And you're going to fill in some details. I would tell you, don't get hung up in all of this detail information, typing it in, because if it doesn't go on the contract, you don't really need it. So, I mean, I'm going to put street number, street name, MLS number, year ago. Fill out some of that, but the rest of that down below here, you're wasting your time typing, because it's not going anywhere. But it's not going to the MLS input. If you're setting up what's the balance of the loan? Usually don't know that as a buyer's agent for sure, and as you don't know yet. So if you kick next through here, list date, again, this is for listing, so Contacts, you will want to stop on the contacts page and add your clients if you're doing it for them. If you're not, if you just want sample forms, we're just gonna hit next. So here's my blank forms. It's two ways of getting things into here. One we're gonna call forms, the other we're gonna call documents. Forms are gonna be the entire list of things that are in the Arizona Association Forms Library. Purchase contract, the buyer advisory, the agency form, the HOA addendum, all of those are gonna be forms. So we're gonna hit the plus sign. Arizona Association of Realtors, and here's the whole list. So you're gonna scroll through here slowly and pick up what you're looking for. This is why you'll save yourself time. If you go to Tay's transaction management class, she'll show you how to set up shortcuts so that you can hit one button and get all 6 forms put in. Saves you picking them out of the list. But what was the one you were wanting to look at first? Okay. The other trick of going through the list, so sometimes they're not in here, like it doesn't start with the word buyer, I can tell you that. It's under real estate agency and disclosure buyer, but let's put buyer agency and see if that comes up. Disclosure of buyer agency and seller waiver. That's not going to be the right form. So agency is going to give you the real estate agency disclosure. I knew it started with real estate. That's why I was going to try to plug in buyer and see what you come up with. But so you're going to pull that form up and you're going to add that. So if you just want to print a PDF of that to take out to your meeting, you can, print that up and you're ready to go. All of your forms are going to be in there, except certain forms that you're going to call documents. Documents are going to be something that doesn't come from the Arizona Association list. Some things that are required in your contract. Kara Carter, we want to thank her for our salads.
Class, there's just a big brochure stand behind you that I'm meant to refresh.
And so I have a quick question
You
about that.
can, yes.
If you don't get this, like, when you are like purchasing your home and you already own a home and you want to get, do you have to pay for the whole first year up front?
Yes,
That's pretty like the smallest standard.
yes, and I'll tell you, we used to do payment plans the first year, and then people would call the next day and we would replace their air conditioner, and then they wouldn't make any more payments.
Of course.
So at least the first year we got the premium. Now, I'm just gonna switch these.
Uh-oh.
With these, we got new
Got
ones.
new ones, updates.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry to interrupt,
That's okay.
but I knew you would know.
I needed to get a sip of tea anyway, so that worked out good.
Oh, you're very welcome.
So the great thing about Old Republic is Old Republic's been around a long time, but the really great thing is if you do have an issue, she's the bomb. So she'll help you get set up if if your issue is just how do I understand getting set up, they have a great website, but she can also walk you through that. But more importantly, if it's summer and your person's having challenges and the person at the end of the switchboard is not seeing the light of day, Tara will help get the right people to talk to you. If it's solvable, she can solve it. They aren't all solvable, but if it's solvable, she'll get the right people on it.
You betcha.
So,
I've been doing it, we just.
yeah, we weren't gonna count. Start.
No, but my cards are right there. Okay, so just grab a card. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Happy
How
New
long have you
Year.
been doing this?
How long have I been doing it? Well, I had a mortgage company before, so I've only been. And then I was doing commercial. I don't know, I've been doing real estate of some sort for 40 years, but yeah. I've been 15 years as an agent. And then I owned a mortgage company for 10 and then did commercial real estate before that. So yeah, I've been doing real estate in Arizona. I drive by neighborhoods that people consider old now. I'm like, I did a construction lending on that. And that house has gone through 3 remodels. So documents are going to be the swimming pool disclosure, which is not show up on any of our forms lists. You're going to be looking at the Arizona Department of Health swimming pool. You're going to have to find it. Unfortunately, it's one of those obscure forms that our contract calls for, but doesn't really tell you where to find it. I'm gonna show you what it looks like. Residential pool safety notice. It's got this blue writing at the top and then it's got some yellow writing in it. So if the house has a swimming pool and you represent the buyer, this is called for in the contract that you provided. You got to go find it. The other one that is called for in the contract is if it needs a lead-based paint disclosure. If it's built prior to 1978, which means 77, 76, 75, but not 78. I run into arguments with some agents thinking that they need it for 78, and I'm like, no, you don't. So it's the law says prior to 78. Why they didn't, 77 and before seems to register with people better, but that's not how they worded it. So the actual legal document you need with your documents is going to come from transaction desk. But in the middle of that document, it says that you, the Mr. or Mrs. Agent, have provided your client with the lead base in your home from EPA. And that form isn't provided. So you have to go find that one. Again, Google. And again, you can find the name of that by reading that transaction desk form. See if this is the right one. No, I didn't want that page. Trying to find the actual PDF. There we go. Looks like this. Blue. So these two forms I would add as documents. And then I would attach those to a signing. They don't technically need to be signed, but I always throw someone's initials on it because the contracts say that you provided it. What better way to prove that you provided it than to have an initial copy that it went out in your document package. So you may also have the HOA gets provided by the seller up front and you're getting that one signed. You're not going to use the HOA addendum in transaction desk. You're going to use the document that you got off of MLS that's already signed by the seller, if that makes sense. Because you're going to have a PDF. You can bring any PDF into that document section and then add that to your signing package. So the form side is only pre-blank forms that you're going to fill out. Documents is any PDF. So those are the two kind of differentiation between forms and documents. Just to kind of make that mud in your brain in transaction desk. So for some reason, it wants to always give us a fax back cover sheet because we all have fax, we all utilize fax machines anymore. Unfortunately, medical doctors,
The only one.
they're the only ones. And they're like, well, they say, well, it's for your protection under HIPAA. I said, well, you realize I have to send this as an email to a service that's going to create a fax. So it's still going through the internet. It doesn't protect anyone. And when you fax back to me, it's going as an email back to me. There's no, I mean, that's their argument. The HIPAA rule, as the argument is it's safer. Well, that'd be safer if I had a fax machine in my bedroom.
I just had to go pick up a disc of my daughter's MRI and send it, like mail a disc of her MRI. That, yeah, we should have been going, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But we have QR codes for everything.
So electronic signature. Well, I jumped ahead here. Transaction does full training, property information. Talk about the minimum stuff. Complete the deal points, title company, home warranty company. You'll want to have those figured out before. So if you log into my Old Republic or one of our other preferred providers or someone you want, if you know that your buyer wants a home warranty, you're going to want to log in, probably share them what the policy plan looks like and make sure that it covers what they want and have it plugged in so that you can bid so that you can plug the price in when you're writing your contract. We're going to go back and use Bill Smith. Hopefully I have a purchase contract before I have to go too far down here. Yeah. Loan assumption addendum. I hadn't read one of those in a while, and then you're starting to hear about those a little bit. Yeah, unfortunately, I put like everything that I had a question on in this one. So to the last, residential purchase contract. So you're gonna, using that PDF and going through this list, you're gonna put together a list of about 6 forms that you need on most houses, might be 7 on some. You have a well, water, or septic. And then you're gonna go through and get everything completed. Don't, one thing at the top I would suggest. On line 2, always check as identified in section 9C. And the reason for that is 9C is where the seller signs. So if you're presenting an offer and you don't check that box and they sign it as, well, this is an LLC, so it's probably coming out that way, but you put in Bob and Jane Smith and they sign it as a Smith Family Trust, you're going to need an addendum to make the seller the Smith Family Trust. If you put that little checkbox every time and the seller makes a change, we're going to believe the seller knows who they are, and we're going to, that translates to all of the seller lines. So it's just an easy checkbox. Don't, if you just get in that habit, you will save yourself some headache. Bob and Jane Smith, and Bob is deceased. Again, solves the problem. Always make sure that you have your assessor number and the legal description. If you're populating this from MLS, sometimes puts in the short one and doesn't give you all the lot number. Your legal description should have a lot number, the name of the area, and the MCR. 10, 11, 12, purchase price, earnest money, additional down payment, and 13 would then be balance to be financed. So you're going to have 400,000, 5,000. That makes sense. I get questions on this that you might all know this, but I pick numbers and I can do the math easy. So basically, all of these 3 should foot to the top line, because then you've identified the whole situation. How you're going to do the earnest money, personal check or wire transfer. It seems like wires more often than not, but it's always to the escrow company. We don't have a brokerage trust account. Close of escrow. I encourage you to use the little calendar box, because you won't make the mistake and have it close of escrow be on a Saturday if you're using the calendar box. If they say, oh, I want to close in a month, and you put 30 days out, or a holiday. Holidays, maybe not as clear on that box, but it might trigger your brain going, that's a Monday. Is that anything? This is where, if you're attaching other things, you need to check them. Again, anything that's just a disclosure between MyHomeGroup and our client doesn't go on this list. This is only buyer and seller, both forms. And you'll get this, I got this on my, makes it harder. I had a listing, and the guy from another company put his mold waiver and his other thing, which I really only have a place for his buyer to sign it. But because it showed up on here, I had to go get my seller to sign them, which is just incorrect. So it should be all of the forms that require everybody's signature, but none of the forms that only require the other party's signature or our one party signature. Affiliated business disclosure you'll find on our checklist, which is a form you're going to find actually in Broker Sumo under the documents where I found the checklist. Every one of your buyers or sellers needs to sign that affiliated party disclosure. But I don't need the other party from West USA to sign our disclosure. I usually, if they put it in, or if the other side's asking for my client to sign it, if it's nothing that's going to be detrimental to my client, I usually just have them sign it. But it's to me, if it's a disclosure between West USA and picking on them because and their client, why should my client have to sign it? But if it's check done here, you're gonna have to do an addendum to remove the check mark, or you're gonna have to have it signed. That's how the broker's gonna do it. Not a contract class, so we're not gonna spend much more time going through that. Once you have kind of gone through this, and you're ready to get things signed. You see there's a little pen up here. There's several other places you'll see the pen when you have the whole list of forms. So we're gonna go back and get the whole list. The interesting thing is you can't get forms and documents at the same time, but I'll show you how to add them. So we're in Bill Smith, and we're gonna we hit the pen here. You can add, you're gonna add your signers, which are participants. You can add documents here. You can add a document or form. So here is where you can take in your transaction, if there's something that's in the document list, like the swimming pool or the other, it'll show up here. If you haven't put it there, like you are doing a buyer and you just got the pre-qual back from the lender and the buyer needs to sign it to be official, you just can bring the PDF in from your computer if you've saved it by hitting upload or import. So we're gonna go find a form from my computer real quick. My affiliated business disclosure, because that's one form you're always going to be bringing in from your computer. Boom. And we're going to go to tools. You've got your signing tools. I didn't add a signer, so that's going to make it a little tougher, but to show affiliated business disclosure, you're going to put your client's name and their signatures on the bottom of that. If you're in the signing tool, got myself. So let's say I had my clients put in there. I've already input them, so it doesn't matter. I can put the full name typed. I don't have to type it in there. I can just drag it over. That's the printed name. And then I need them to sign. So now I'm going to do a sign here for Craig Harlan. So it's actually having me sign it right now because it's myself, but
it would just send that.
right. So after you get all those, make sure you have a signature block and an initial block everywhere you need it. When you bring in the purchase contract, the one thing I would caution is line 180 and 181, where it talks about the lead-based paint pre-78, post-78. It's going to put initials by both of them. You need to use the trash box and delete the wrong one because we don't want to. It either is or it isn't. So, and when it does the automated download on the purchase contract, it will automatically do both on. So you just have to come through, right? Because I didn't put buyers in here. They're not there, this one, but see 180, 182. I don't know most things by line items, but I know that one because it's just, you got to remember to go look at that one. So yeah, so it wants me to add a signer. I don't really have a remote signer because I didn't put any signatures for myself in. So if I hit next, it's going to say you can create a message. And I always recommend that at least the first time that you do. And the message I recommend the first time is, please read and review these and call me with any questions. Because as one of our brokers is famous for saying, John Dyer, he says, people spend more time picking their signature than reading the document when you send it to them on their phone, right? So they're signing a complex legal document that's 18 pages long, and they spent more time picking their signature style and then going click, 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 yes, yes, yes. So to avoid having to sit in court and have them say, well, she didn't tell me. No, I said to read it and review it before you signed it, didn't I? Well, I don't know. Well, here, let me show you that email. So it's a prevention of, just cover your butt kind of thing, to send that initial email at least saying, please review and sign, please review and call me with any questions. Certainly, if it's a first time buyer, I want to meet with them probably in person because they're gonna have questions. They don't, If it's someone from out of state, maybe the same thing. If they're from out of state and I can't meet with them in person, I've used a video review of it. So I've sent them a video going through kind of the major highlights that I would do on a face-to-face thing. Because you really want to make sure that you're representing them and that they understand what they're signing. And that's, so just know that it's too easy to click through everything. Once it's signed, you'll get an email back saying everything's signed. Here's the forms. You want to download them here. If you miss that email, you can always come back into transaction desk. Okay. Backing out of this one. So if you missed the email that said it's all signed, you can come back here and you can see all of your things, what's been completed, what's been signed, and you can pull the forms, signed forms from here by clicking on this one. Come in here and view a signed PDF. And then you'll have the signed form that you can download to your computer. Unfortunately, this doesn't talk to SkySlope and it doesn't, so you're gonna, on a purchase offer, you're gonna download the forms. Bear in mind that you usually want to download only the forms that you need to send to the seller. HOA addendum, buyer, they don't need the buyer advisory. They don't need our affidavit of value. So you don't want to send them 6 forms when they really only need 3. It just makes it look cluttered for them. And for the same reason, you're not going to list them on the first page of the contract. So this is a good time to go figure out how you're going to organize your files. And here's my buyer signed set, and I'm forwarding that to the seller. Here's our offer. Hopefully we can come together on terms. And then you're gonna have to have when they send back the one that's signed accepted, you're gonna save that because that's the one you're gonna put in SkySlope. SkySlope is where our company brokers review the documents. Within 5 days of a document being signed, executed by both parties, it needs to be put in SkySlope because the brokers have 10 days to review it. So if you send an offer today and the response time is tomorrow and it gets signed tomorrow, that starts your 5 days to get it put in. So you're going to get it in by, what was that, Monday or Tuesday? I always like to have my lender call the listing agent to discuss the strength of your buyer to the degree that they feel they are comfortable with. They're not going to give a FICO score and stuff, but your lender call and says, I've been working with Bob to get a house here. We've been working together for 3 months. He's always responsive. I've got all the documents I need. His credit meets the standards, and we're ready to go as long as we get a good appraisal. And just simply by getting that phone call, the listing agent knows, well, here's a lender that's going to probably stay on top of this deal. Versus being a big box lender that hard to get a hold of. Negotiation, multiple offers. My prediction is by second quarter, if rates come down into the really low 6s or high 5s consistently, you're gonna start seeing multiple offers again. So if you're representing a buyer and we've hit that point in the market, the object is to make your offer as clean as possible. Don't ask for concessions if you can get away with it. Don't ask for a home warranty if you can get away with not doing it. Put your buyer's best foot forward. If you get a response back that we have multiple offers and we're going to consider highest and best by tomorrow at 5 o'clock, I always tell my buyer now at that point, it's like, okay, now instead of going, how cheap can I get this house for? You have to say, what's the most I'm willing to pay? And if I had to pay $1 more, I don't want it. You have to change your frame of mind in that market, which we were in second half of 21 and into 22. It was horrible. I mean, if you didn't have an extra $100,000 to put on the table on a $500,000 house, you couldn't buy something. So if someone's looking now and they're like, well, I really want to wait till rates come down. Rates may come down, they may not. If rates come down, we're going to have a severe shortage because there's so many pent up buyers waiting for rates to come down. And I don't know what everyone's number is. If everyone's number is 3%, they're never hitting the market again. But that's not happening anytime soon. But we could see 5 3/4. And if people just want to see a 5 in the number, I think we're going to have a tremendous rush of buyers. And then you'll be back in this multiple offer thing. And if the rates, if you buy now, if you can afford, find the house you like and you can afford the payment at, we're in the sixes now instead of sevens, which is good, but let's say 6.5. I don't think we're quite there, but let's say if you can afford the payment at 6.5 and it's the house that you need, then I think you should consider doing it. Because if rates come down, that house is going to be either unattainable or more expensive. So, and if rates go up, you're still going to be happy you got in at 6.5.
So weird that, like, to me, that's like such common sense of like how you break it down, but when you try to explain it to somebody, like, I'm new to real estate, like, it's not that I've been doing this 20 years, and so I know all these things, like, for me, it's like, obviously, I bought and sold homes for myself before, but like, I remember in 2020, we sold and bought, and everybody in my life was like, are you freaking crazy? And then even my mom's like, well, I'm gonna wait and see. Well, it ended up popping back up, and she ended up at like a 5.5, like that's when it like started kind of creeping back up. And of course, like her house was a little bit cheaper because like they had gone, you know what I mean? So we're kind of getting people to understand, well, you do realize that the more that the rates
One of
are
three-
up,
yeah.
the higher the price is gonna go up.
One of the things
the
is,
people
yeah,
are.
it's simple. One of three things is going to happen with interest rates. They're going to go up, they're going to go down, or they're going to stay the same. So look at this scenario. If they go up, you're going to be happy that you locked in because you can't go back and get it. If it goes the same, you'll be okay. You're happy. You can make the payment. I mean, the presumption is you're buying in your affordability bracket and you need a house. This doesn't work for the guy that wants to trade from 3-bedroom to a 4-bedroom, which is why we have an inventory shortage.
Unless they have debt.
Because I got 2 3/4. I'm going nowhere. I get it. I understand. You're going nowhere.
Unless they have debt, well.
Yeah. But if it goes down and you bought, you're like, well, okay, let's just refinance. I don't like the date the rate and marry the house. I don't like that comment because that, I mean, have you heard that?
Yeah.
And it's like, to me, it's like, you're like, promising that the rate's gonna go down when you make that kind of statement. To me, let them know, one of 3 ways. It's gonna go up, it's gonna go down and stay the same. And what you do today, how is that gonna reflect in one of those 3? And if they need a house,
Up today at 6.5.
probably close, maybe slightly above. I haven't really looked since.
Conventional is gonna be in the high sixes, low sevens, FHA's.
FHA is the low one right now. So frankly, I kind of took Christmas week off with 2 toddlers, grandkids in the house, and I haven't even looked at some.
I'm a lender.
Okay,
That's what we're quoting. I actually quoted 599, the wording on the purchase.
And how do you get that 599 on the refi?
It's just,
Points.
yeah, it's 2.
And then that you have to have the seller.
well, it's a refi, so it's
That's what that-
coming out of the money.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. just
But on a
like-
purchase, yes.
on a
Purchase, you have to
purchase,
set
the
seller
to help with
compensation.
the buying
Or the
power.
buyer has no cash, and depending on,
So my prediction is right now in this first quarter, we've got about 15.5 houses, and that's houses and condos. I didn't separate just houses, active listings right now. And we're selling, I forgot to look at the sales in the last 30 days. It was low, 4,000 something.
I thought it was almost 6, but maybe it's.
Yeah, it might be 4,800, some, but whatever. We have adequate inventory right now because the buyers have all been holding back. So the Fed has said, we're gonna be lowering 3 times this year, and the mortgage rates have built that prediction in a little bit, so it's not gonna every time they go down, but we could see 5s, we could see high 5s by mid-year if there's any other positive indications, right? Would you agree with that?
Certain amount of time, to refi after a purchase, like, is there a set, like, or, like, let's say if I bought a
Or
house.
6 months. It just depends.
So here,
Not really.
so
Like, if I bought a house this month, and then like in June,
We want.
they like drop.
So here's the deal, the way the mortgage market works is the mortgage company gets paid by reselling that into pools. And if they're gonna have, the mortgage company can't come back to you, the consumer, but the mortgage loan officer, and it actually doesn't come out of the loan officer's pocket anymore like it used to, because it can't, it comes out of the company's pocket. Used to come out of the loan officer's pocket before they knew
Depending on the
rules.
programs, yeah.
Yeah, so you have a buyback, situation. So it's, I would just say it's not polite to ask your lender to refinance within 6 months. right? That's a nice way to say it.
That's a nice
Kind
way
of
to say
not
it.
polite. Not polite, but because they're taking a long-term asset and selling it as a long-term asset, and they're gonna get penalized if it becomes not a long-term asset. And 6 months should cover most of the programs. Some will be 3, some will be 6. Most of the programs by 6, they're like, okay, that's yesterday's news.
And a refi also, there's something called a net tangible benefit. So.
You can't refinance for an 1/8%.
Right. But I mean, just like, but there's still a decent benefit for the client to do it, right? And usually, maybe a little bit of value comes in, maybe, rates are moved in a certain way in 6 months to allow that kick in, to then do the refi. So there's always some little nuances too, that we educate.
Yeah.
Okay.
To hold off as much as
Yeah,
possible.
we're not gonna refi to save you $18.76 a
Right.
month and charge you $3,000 to do that.
That's the-
Because that was why
that's
they
the
came out with a net tangible benefit. 'Cause
Right.
The people were churning like crazy and,
Every time they drop a quarter of a point, you're like,
and then all of a sudden, you got mortgage loan officers who are making 2 points every time this thing happens. And the person's mortgage amount's growing
yeah.
and they save $25 a month. Yeah, it's not good for the client.
Yeah, so it's good for them.
So, yeah, but if you, 6 months from now and the rate's down 0.5%, that's probably gonna provide a tangible benefit. So, yeah, that's a good perspective and.
Well, I have another guy to call this afternoon, like after I meet with my other guy I'm going to meet with here in a bit. So like have that conversation, cause like he hit me up about something yesterday. I'm like, hey buddy, when are you gonna let me help you buy a house? Like, I heard you're still renting. And he's like, well, and the rate, I heard the rates are still a little high. And again, this is like that
Right.
conversation. I'm like, oh, I'm calling you. Like, let me help you to better understand.
So
this,
we've come
because-
from 7
Yeah.
7 3/4 down to 6 3/4 and 7. So we've come down almost a point. Well, part of that is building in, the last little dip down was building in the Fed's now representation that they're gonna lower rates a couple times next year. So they lowered it once. So the Fed rate drop doesn't immediately change the mortgage rates because the mortgage futures anticipate what the Fed's talking.
Yeah.
And it was going up when the Fed was saying, hey, we gotta, we're going up long and strong and that's what boosted us way up to 8. It was those comments, and now the comments 30 days later waffled to, yeah, maybe we're gonna come. Maybe Biden told us that this is an election year after all, and that's not gonna be an acceptable, doesn't fit his Bidenomic. I'm sorry, I don't want to be political. So who all can listen to Biden say that they feel better at the end of the day with their paycheck? I don't think anybody. But yeah, he has these commercials that make it sound like everybody's doing great. Not to mention that your 1 bag of groceries costs you $80 now instead of 30, but yeah.
Cleaning lady just upped her price, $50.
First world problems.
My girls won't come anymore if it isn't this much or over. I'm like, you've been coming to my home for 4 years and I didn't set the price, like you did. I actually keep upping and paying you more because like I know cost of living has gone up. She's never said a
Kind of tipping.
So I just like tipped her more and then, I'm like, where are you coming from here?
Yeah, well, first world problems.
I know.
So, and once your offer is accepted, you're gonna wanna send a copy to your escrow officer and make arrangements for your earnest money to get the title. You're gonna send that copy. I'm gonna send the contract copying the other agent as well. And then I'm gonna send a second email to the title officer saying, oh, and my buyer's contact information, their email and phone number is that's. The other agent doesn't need that, so I don't make those in the same one. And within 5 days of the signed contract, it must be put in Sky's book. And so there's a cool thing called a critical date list in transaction desk. So for those of you who want to have a little control or you need some control or something, whatever we want to call it, forms. So if you come in here, critical date list, you're going to have to create the fill in the blanks, but this gives you a format to do it. So I would suggest first deal or two. I mean, obviously the inspection period's the baddest one to not miss, right? If there's any issues, but there's a lot of other dates on the contract that this will help you. I think they need to change this and put the new ones at the top. When I have this huge list like this. This is like everything that could go wrong on a contract, so I never have that many deals. So it gives you a place to keep track of everything. Probably a good cheat sheet to keep on your desk. So you're gonna read the contract and figure out, you're gonna put in your mutual acceptance. When the buyer got their earnest money in, when the lender has 3 days after contract acceptance to get the loan, the buyer has to complete the loan application, and then within 5 days, you get the update from the lender. Spuds 3 days after contract. So once you have the contract date, you can create the other dates and drop them in your calendar. But again, it's really inspections the biggest, that 10-day inspection. If your client wants something, they better make their decision and have all their inspections done in that time frame. So I always recommend getting an inspector out there first in case he says, oh, you need an AC guy to look at this. You have a few days left to do that. And sometimes if it's clearly an older AC, I might recommend that they spend the money and get an AC guy out there, order it up front, because, even if it seems okay, you might want someone to look at a 18-year-old AC and say, what did the dice tell you today, sir? So that's the biggest date management. It's not the only dates management. This form gives you a place to pull out the dates and issues in the contract. So this is a good thing to recommend until you kind of tattoo it to your brain, and it's ingrained. I mean, otherwise what happens is you wake up at 11 o'clock at night, oh my God, what's today? Was I supposed to get something today? The Binzer, again, you've got till the midnight of the 10th day to get that delivered. If you deliver the Binzer on the 2nd day and then something else comes up, too bad. Your inspection period ended when you delivered the Binzer. That makes sense to everybody? It's a 10-day inspection period, but the inspection period ends when you deliver the Binzer. So don't deliver the Binzer when you know that the HVAC guy is coming out tomorrow until the HVAC guy's been there. Because you can't come back and ask for that. Say, oh, I got my home inspector, but here's my list of 6 things, and here you go. There's my Binzer, and the AC guy's coming out tomorrow. Well, that's good, but you can't ask for anything from that. You've put your ask on the table. It's worded in there somewhere, but it ceases the day it's delivered. Weekly updates from the lender. You want to know when the appraisal was ordered. Very common practice to wait till the Binzer is negotiated before the appraisal is ordered. And I don't blame clients unless you have a particularly tight schedule. It usually works.